So I just wanted to do a quick tutorial on this image, and I'm just going to put this unlisted on YouTube, so no worries. But this image is a great one if it's going on white to knock out the white, or if it's going on one of these colors to knock out one of those colors. And I just wanted to make a video and talk about that for a second because it's just so tempting, to talk about. It's such a great image for that type of purpose. But the way that you would, make this great is to convert it to an SVG, So what I've done is I've actually just upscaled it. And I upscaled it with upscale.org. I use that software. And then I'm just selecting all of these areas. I've got my tolerance up really high. And so I'm just selecting all the different areas. And, you could spend a lot of time on this image, actually. I'm going to not spend a terrible amount of time. I'm going to spend, the appropriate amount, I guess, that I can afford to spend on it. And so what I'm doing is I'm just selecting all this green, and then I'm going to paste it. I will say, if this was mine, I would really, I would spend more. I'm going to do a good job. I'm not trying to worry you that I'm not going to do a good job. But I would. This needs a lot of love. It just, what's happened is, it's been saved as a JPEG. And so it's going to be a really bad quality. And it's really hard to get back from once something's been a JPEG, And I'm the best at it. I'm going to do a great job for you. But it's just one of those things that, it's a shame because it's such a sharp image. It's this type of image actually, probably suffers the most from, this type of destruction, And so I don't know where it came from or how it was created, but if we could find that out, that would help, because then we could do a better job and not have to do quite so much cleanup. So I'm just using my brush tool, and I'm using my eraser tool, and that's it would be easier to try to figure out where this image was created so that we could get the original and get it to be really high quality. So I'm not sure. I'm not shaming you or anything. I'm literally just, I'm sad that it's going to be not perfect, but we're going to do the best we can. So we're going to clean that part up. And there's just little things that are really quite annoying about this. It's like this little stuff right here. We really want those corners to be sharp. And what we need to do is just come in and just kind of click and hit it and try to shape these kind of pieces of the design up. It's got small text, and that's some of the hardest stuff if you don't keep it clean from the beginning. Because you just have to literally just come in and kind of paint over. And try to do a good job. So let's, stop bitching. Sorry about that. Sorry about the complaining. And just try to show you how to do something like this. So this is what I've got. I'm just literally going in and trying to, refine things that look wrong. And here we go. Let's just grab that. We're just going to fix that up a little bit more. Every little bit's going to help when you got an image that's been damaged this badly. So, all right, let's click here. Let's try to round that off. We're just trying to follow the shape of those fonts. And then let's just go in here and get that cleaned up. All right. And so that's probably what I'm going to call done for that part, for the green. And I'm also making this video so I can talk you through all the different choices that have to be made. I'm assuming that all those greens are the same, right? So I'm just making an assumption that all the green is supposed to be one color. So I'm going to call this green. All right. We'll save this document. So we'll just do File, Save As. I'll save it in my downloads, and I'm just going to call it Springfield Diamonds. And that's going to make it faster to export these other layers. So we're just going to do File, Export. We're going to export this as the Springfield Diamonds green. Okay. And then we're going to look back at this, and we want this white shape here, okay? And we want this blue shape, okay? So let's do that. So let's grab this, and we're just going to click our magic wand in here. And we're also going to select this part. And we're also going to select out here. So we're selecting everything that is not that blue shape. Okay, and then we're just going to Control-Shift-I and get the shape, that's inverted the selection. And then we're just going to paint black. So we'll do Control-Shift-N. I'm going to call that a blue. I'm sure there's a better term for that. And I'm just going to paint that. And then I'll turn that layer off because I still need to get this white. And we'll grab that white, and then we'll paint that. We'll call that the diamond. And we will paint black on that. Boom. All right, so now we have all of our shapes. And so we're just going to export this as the blue. So we'll do File. We turn everything off except that layer. Boom. And then we're just going to do File, Export as PNG. And I'm going to call that the blue. Okay. And then we're going to take this diamond and we'll do File, Export as PNG. And we're going to call that white. Okay, and we might, we have to have that diamond shape. That's right, it's on top of it. So, all right, so here's our Inkscape. So we go over to Inkscape, and then we're going to drag in all those layers. So I'm just selecting them in my folder and just dropping them in and just hitting OK on each one. All right. And gosh, I saw some errors. I mean, I see problems all over it, but this is going to be the best technique to clean it up. And then we're just going to select one of these and then grab the trace bitmap and just hit apply. So that's our diamond. And we know it's going to be white. So let's make it white. And then this is our green. And so we'll name it green. And then this is our blue. And so we'll just name that blue. And then we can delete these images. And then we can bring the original image back in. So we'll just bring the one that you sent in. And I'm just going to pull that over here. Doesn't matter if it gets distorted because all we care about is the colors from it. And we'll just select our blue and we'll grab our fill and stroke and we'll use our little color picker and select that. And then we'll grab our green, same thing. And we'll click a big expanse of that green. And then we are going to move our green above. And we're going to move our diamond above the blue. And then we're going to put this stroke around the text. And that's the part that I'm probably the most nervous about. It has cleaned up quite a bit of the problems that I saw. So that's great. So let's just take this green and we're going to do Control-Shift-V. K. And what that's done is it's broken that green up into all these little paths, okay? And I'm just going to click on the stage to deselect everything. And then I'm going to hold shift and drag. And I'm trying to get all the text. And I think I've gotten it. I'm just learning where it is. And then I'm going to hit Control K. And I'm going to call that text. Okay, and then I'm going to lock that and hide it. And then I'm going to grab all of these other paths. I'm just holding Control and selecting them. So all the paths that aren't named anything are all the rest of this this green layer. And I'm just going to hit Control X on that. And then I'm going to move that text above. And I'm going to turn it back on and unlock it. Okay, so now the tricky part. Let's do the stroke. So we're going to choose the stroke paints. And we're going to make it white. And then we're going to do the stroke style, and we're going to do 5 millimeters. That's pretty good. And actually, it is a little rounded. Let's look at the original and just make sure that we're close. Okay, so it looks like a smaller text around Springfield, a smaller stroke, and then a larger stroke around Diamonds. So we have to break that back up. Okay, so I'm just going to lock and turn off all the other layers so that I don't get this text confused again. And then we'll just select that text and we'll do Control Shift K again. And then we're just going to select, I'm going to hold Shift and pull out my selection. And then Control K, and we'll make that Diamonds. And then we'll try that same trick on the Springfield. So we'll just select that, Control K, and we'll call that Springfield. Okay. And then we're going to go to our stroke style and we'll lower it. So let's change this to a 3. And I think that that's a little closer to what we had before. Okay. And I mean, the stroke is a little rounded. It might be okay, though. I might just be being too picky about that. Let's look at it up close. So I really want this to be sharp. But, it's not going to be able to be sharp like in places like this because we've got all this, artifacts still from, the way this was... the way that we recreated it. So let's try taking all of those vertices and make it a 1. And then let's make it one that corners. Yeah, I'm not real happy with that. Yeah. But that's going to, see, this is what I was worried about, is there's going to be problems with the stroke. All right, so let's just grab this and try to make that a little even. And so the stroke is coming from the actual, the actual underlying vector layer. And so we're just going to try to fix that up a little bit. I'm not sure if I made that better or worse, maybe a little better. And, are there any other glaring problems? That's what we want to look for. So I'm holding the space bar, and moving around the document. So hold space bar. And move. Let's see if we can adjust this stroke style. So let's select this guy. And we want these caps. This is something I'm not really that great at. We want these bevel joins. And there's a setting. Let's do that. Miter join. Okay. And then you can increase this. Didn't seem to be having any effect. This is kind of the bane of my existence, is I want that stroke to have an outer point that is sharp. And how can it do that if it's got too many vertices? But see this one right here, like why is that not sharp? That's what my problem is. I think I know what the problem is. I mean, this is not cornering. There we go. There's that sharp corner. Usually with like, collegiate fonts like this, you really want those sharp corners. And, this is kind of what I was saying about, how you could spend a lot of time with this, because you could sit here and try to get those perfect, and this step of trying to achieve perfection from the text layer, it literally just could be the rest of your life. It would there's some point where it would make more sense to just redraw, or recreate the text. Yeah, that corner is pretty sharp. This one's not. And let's look, and maybe I'm obsessing over nothing. Yeah, no, they're sharp. That's what our challenge is here. So this one, if we make it corner, and then we have to delete or pull back this, that's preventing that from being sharp. And of course, every little move you make, every breath you take, there's a lot going on. So that one is sharp. This one's not. No, it is. Yeah, I know that's not fun to watch, so I'm going to pause and work on this. Okay, well, I've gone all the way around the diamonds, and I'm probably going to ignore the Springfield part. I just think it's, a lot of invested time at this point, so I'm just going to let it go. Let it go. Sometimes we have to do that. So I'll unlock all of these. And then the last thing that we need to do is we need our white layer behind. And that's one of those things where I just wish we knew whether we really needed that or not. If you were putting it on white, then you wouldn't want that, because that would make it much softer to knock that white out. But we're going to put it back there. And what we're going to do is we're just going to come in here, and we're just going to draw the white in. So let's just put this here, and then we'll just put a point here and drag it. We don't have to be perfect. I think I'm telling myself that. And then we'll put this point here, and then we'll just kind of keep going, and boop, and then we'll come down here and we'll connect it, and then we'll move that to the bottom, and we will change its color to whites. We'll make sure we get all the way to pure white so it doesn't look like a little yellowish or anything. All right, and then the last step is Control-Shift-R. I needed to have nothing selected when I did that. Control-Shift-R, and that'll get all the way around to the bounds so it's perfectly trimmed. And then we'll go to export it, and I always do these at 4500. And we're going to, I should have saved it first, actually. Let me save it. And we're going to call this Springfield Diamonds. I'm just being lazy and not typing. All right. And then we'll go to export it, and we'll change that folder. I'm going to go to my downloads folder, and I'm going to export it as a PNG, and we will call that Springfield Diamonds. And I'm going to put 4500px so we know that it's 15 inches, and my name and RTP, and then hit save. And then before we can call that professionally finished, we need to open it back up with Photoshop. DPI is just a flag. It literally has no bearing on the actual quality. But if you don't set the DPI, And when you have it the right size, you just want to turn off resample, of course, and set it to 300. If you don't set the DPI, then other programs when they import your image might not understand what size it truly is. All right, so now we're going to hit File, Quick Export as PNG. Nope, we don't even have to do that because we've already done that. We just save it. Now it's been set. The DPI is correct. Hey, I hope this helps. So the reason I make these videos, they're multi-fold, right? It's one, for everyone to understand how hard it is to do this type of work. It's really important, I think, that everybody knows that. I mean, this took me a total about 45 minutes. I mean, it's a 20-minute video so far, but I've done some pausing. I did some upscaling. You know, I've had other steps, work on it that I did pause and then worked on it. And so I just want you to know that because it's important that everybody understands, hey, why aren't they responding quickly? Man, I mean, I've probably got a dozen requests right now. And they all take, somewhere between, some take, 20 minutes, some take 5, and some take 2.5 to 3 hours, depending on it. And it's really hard to tell, if you don't do this type of work, what's going to be hard and what's going to be easy. And then the other thing is, by watching the video, you'll see, that it's not perfect. And maybe we can start designing things and preserving things in such a way that we could get better quality. I think when you know how hard it is to fix it, and sometimes, I may be literally preaching to the choir here, sometimes you don't have any choice. It's just what you got from the consumer, and you just can't help it. It's just already damaged when you get it. But if anybody is involved in producing these images, all we have to do is get to them and figure out why they're exporting it as a JPEG and sending that to us. Can we just get it out of the software in the correct way? That would be amazing. So it's a beautiful image. So if you do know the designer, they did a great job. And I appreciate you very much. We're going to put this up in the folder. Let me do that real fast. So I'm putting the SVG and the PNG up in the folder. But the PNG, is going to say PNG here. You might have to open up this little I when you get to the drive folder. But that is the one that you want to send in. And that's the one that I'm going to send the link to you for. But all your stuff should be stored in this folder as we go through and fix it all. So anyway, thanks again. You have a great day. Have a great Saturday. All right, take care.